Lisa Martinez stared out the window of the Alliance ship GSS Meridian and watched the stars move past. She had been dreaming of this moment for years, but now that she was here, everything felt wrong. The other cadets barely looked at her. When they did, their alien faces showed the same thing over and over again. They thought humans were weak. She was 22 years old and came from a small town in Texas. Back home, everyone said she was smart and tough. Here, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy, she felt small and out of place. The Kalari cadets towered over her with their blue skin and 4 arms. The Nexian students could see in 3 different light spectrums. Even the plant-like Verdani seemed more impressive with their ability to process toxins that would kill a human instantly. "Another human mistake," muttered Cadet Zeth, a Kalari with silver markings across his forehead. He was looking at Lisa's test scores on his datapad. "How did your species even get into the academy?" Lisa kept her face blank, but her hands made fists under the table. She had scored higher than Zeth on every strategy test, but nobody seemed to care about that. All they saw was her small human body and soft human skin. Instructor Vex walked into the training room. He was a Reelan with gray skin and eyes that glowed yellow. His species had been fighting wars for thousands of years before humans even discovered fire. He looked at the mixed group of cadets with obvious disappointment. "Today we practice real combat scenarios," Vex announced. His voice sounded like gravel in a metal bucket. "You will work in teams. The Kepler sector missions require perfect cooperation." Lisa hoped she would get paired with someone decent, but Vex had other ideas. "Martinez," he called. "You work alone. Humans need to learn their limits." The other cadets laughed. Lisa felt her face get hot, but she nodded. She had been working alone most of her life anyway. The Meridian was flying near the Kepler sector, where the war with the Vorthan Empire was getting worse every month. The Vorthans were known across the galaxy as the most dangerous military force anyone had ever seen. They had technology that could destroy planets and soldiers who felt no fear or mercy. "This should be simple," Vex told the class as they prepared for the training mission. "Reconnaissance only. Get in, gather information, get out. Even the humans should be able to handle this." Lisa climbed into her escape pod with the other cadets. The pods were small ships designed to carry one person safely to a planet's surface. Today they would practice landing on different types of worlds and gathering intelligence without being detected. She checked her equipment one more time. Standard Alliance gear, communications device, basic weapons, emergency supplies for 3 days. Everything looked normal. The alarm started screaming just as the pods launched. "All cadets, this is not a drill," came the voice over the communications system. "Vorthan ships detected. Prepare for combat." Through her pod's small window, Lisa saw the Meridian shake as enemy weapons hit its shields. Bright flashes of light filled space as the Alliance ship fired back. More Vorthan ships appeared, coming out of jump space like metal sharks. "Change of plans," Captain Rodriguez announced over the radio. "All pods scatter. Find safe landing zones and wait for pickup." Lisa watched in horror as 3 cadet pods exploded in balls of fire. The Vorthans were not just attacking the Meridian. They were hunting the escape pods too. Her pod shook as enemy fire passed close by. The control panel flashed red warnings: hull damage, engine problems, navigation systems failing. "I can't control it," she said into her radio, but only static came back. She was alone. The pod spun through space, completely out of control. Through the chaos, Lisa saw a moon getting bigger and bigger in her window. Kepler 7, according to Wei, her broken navigation system. She was going to crash. The impact threw her against the safety strap so hard she saw stars. Metal screamed and bent around her. Smoke filled the small space. When everything finally stopped moving, Lisa hung upside, down in her crashed pod. She smelled something burning and quickly hit the emergency release. The pod's door opened with a loud hiss and she fell out onto rocky ground. Her whole body hurt, but nothing seemed broken. Lisa looked around and felt her heart sink. She had crashed on top of a hill that looked down into a valley. In that valley sat the biggest military base she had ever seen. Huge metal buildings, landing pads full of Vorthan ships, and thousands of enemy soldiers moving around like ants. She had landed right next to one of the most important Vorthan military installations in the entire sector. Her radio made a crackling sound. She quickly tuned it and heard a familiar voice. "Any surviving cadets, report your status," said Colonel Jake Murphy from Alliance Command. Lisa pressed the transmit button. "This is Cadet Martinez. I'm alive, but my pod is destroyed. I'm on Kepler 7. "Kepler 7? Murphy's voice sounded shocked. "That moon is crawling with Vorthans. Find somewhere to hide and stay put. Do not engage the enemy under any circumstances. If they find you, surrender immediately. We can't risk you giving away Alliance secrets under interrogation." "Understood, sir," Lisa replied. But as she looked down at the massive enemy base, she was already thinking about something very different. The colonel wanted her to hide and surrender if caught. Every part of her military training said that was the smart choice. Lisa had never been very good at making the smart choice. She gathered what supplies she could from her wrecked pod and started moving toward the Vorthan base. If Alliance Command wanted intelligence about enemy operations, she would get it for them. But she would do it her way. The war had just become very personal. Lisa spent her first night hiding in a cave near her crashed pod. She could hear Vorthan search teams moving around the area, but they never came close enough to find her. When morning came, she carefully made her way to a spot where she could watch the enemy base without being seen. The base was even bigger than she had thought. It stretched across the entire valley floor, with walls that looked like they could stop a tank. Guard towers rose up every few hundred meters, each one filled with weapons that could kill anything that moved. Lisa counted at least 50 different buildings inside the walls. She pulled out her small binoculars and started studying the enemy soldiers. Vortans were tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes that never seemed to blink. They moved in perfect lines and never talked to each other unless they had to. Everything they did followed exact patterns. Lisa had studied Vorthan culture at the academy, but seeing them in person was different. They were like machines that looked like living beings. Even their vehicles moved in straight lines and made perfect turns. She spent the whole day watching and taking notes. The guards changed positions every 2 hours. Supply ships came and went on a strict schedule. Even the way they walked followed the same pattern every time. On her second day, Lisa moved to a different hiding spot to get a better view of the eastern side of the base. That was when she saw something that made her heart race. 3 huge ships were being loaded with weapons and supplies. According to the markings on their sides, they were heading to 3 different star systems. All 3 systems had major Alliance colonies. Lisa tried to contact Alliance Command, but her radio was too damaged to reach that far. She could only receive messages, not send them. She listened to military broadcasts and heard something that made her blood run cold. "Intelligence reports suggest Vorthan forces are planning something big," came a voice from Alliance headquarters. "All units maintain high alert status." They knew something was coming, but they did not know what or when. Lisa watched the base for another day and saw more ships being prepared. She counted weapons, vehicles, and soldiers. The numbers were terrifying. The Vorthans were not planning a small raid. They were preparing for a massive attack that could destroy the Alliance's ability to fight back. She tried to fix her radio using parts from her escape pod, but human technology and Vorthan equipment did not work together well. She managed to boost the signal a little, but not enough to reach Alliance space. On her 4th day, Lisa got lucky. A Vorthan patrol ship landed just outside the base to refuel. The pilot got out to check something on the engine, leaving the ship unguarded for almost 10 minutes. Lisa knew this was her chance. She ran down from her hiding spot and slipped inside the ship while the pilot was busy. The inside was very different from human ships. Everything was sharp angles and cold metal. The computer screens showed symbols she did not recognize, but Lisa had studied alien technology at the academy. She found the communication system and quickly copied everything she could onto a small data device. Ship movements, attack plans, troop numbers, and most importantly, timing. The attack was set to begin in less than 3 days. She heard footsteps outside and quickly hid behind a cargo container. The Vorthan pilot came back and did his final checks. Lisa held her breath as he walked around the small ship, but he never looked in her direction. After the ship left, Lisa hurried back to her hiding place and studied the stolen information. What she found made her feel sick. The Vorthons were not just planning to attack 3 systems. They were planning to destroy them completely. No prisoners, no mercy, nothing left alive. The attack would hit the colonies before any Alliance ships could get there to help. Millions of humans and other Alliance species would die in the first few hours. Lisa tried her radio again, but it was still not strong enough to reach Alliance Command. Even if she could contact them, would they believe? A single cadet who was supposed to be hiding and waiting for rescue? She looked down at the base and made a decision that went against everything she had been taught. Running away and hoping someone else would stop the attack was not good enough. By the time she could get help, it would be too late. Lisa started, planning something that no one would expect from a human cadet who was supposed to surrender if caught. She studied the base's power systems and found something interesting. The Vorthons were very confident in their technology, maybe too confident. Their main power reactor had only one backup system, something human engineers would never allow. If something happened to both the main reactor and the backup, the entire base would lose power. The defense systems, communications, weapon controls, everything depended on that power. Lisa also noticed something else. The Vorthons followed rules so strictly that they could not adapt when something unexpected happened. If their normal procedures stopped working, they became confused and made mistakes. She spent her 5th day watching guard rotations and mapping out every entrance to the base. The Vorthons had made their walls very high and their weapons very powerful, but they had not planned for someone small enough to fit through maintenance tunnels or smart enough to use their own systems against them. That night, Lisa made her final preparations. She gathered everything useful from her escape pod and created a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. Instead of waiting for rescue, she was going to walk into the most dangerous enemy base in the sector and try to stop an attack that could win the war for the Vorthons. If she failed, millions would die and no one would ever know she tried. If she succeeded, she would prove that humans were much more dangerous than anyone believed. Lisa waited until the darkest part of the night before she began her mission. She had watched the Vorthon patrols for 6 days and knew exactly when they would be changing guards. The gap between patrols was only 12 minutes, but that would have to be enough. She moved down the hillside like a shadow, carrying only the tools she had made from her escape pod. A knife created from metal plating, explosive charges built from power cells, and a small device that could interfere with Vorthon communication systems. The first patrol she encountered was 2 Vorthon soldiers walking along the outer perimeter. They moved in perfect step, never looking anywhere except straight ahead. Lisa followed them for 10 minutes, learning their exact route and timing. When they reached a spot hidden from the guard towers, Lisa struck. She had studied Vorthon anatomy at the academy and knew exactly where to hit. The first soldier went down without making a sound. The second one started to turn, but Lisa was already moving. In less than 30 seconds, both guards were unconscious. Lisa quickly stripped one of the soldiers and put on his uniform. The Vorthon was much taller than her, so the clothes were loose, but in the darkness it might be enough to fool someone who was not looking too closely. She dragged both bodies into some rocks where they would not be found until morning. By then, she planned to be deep inside the base. The uniform felt strange on her skin. Vorthon clothing was made from a material that felt like metal, but bent like fabric. It was designed for their cold body temperature, so it made Lisa feel like she was wearing ice. She approached the base's outer wall and found what she was looking for, a maintenance tunnel that was too small for most Vorthons but perfect for a human. The tunnel led under the wall and into the base's lower levels. Lisa crawled through the tunnel for what felt like hours. The space was barely big enough for her shoulders, and she had to push her supplies ahead of her as she moved. Twice she heard Vorthon voices above her, but they never suspected that someone was crawling through their own maintenance system. When she finally reached the other end, Lisa found herself in a storage room filled with spare parts and equipment. She waited and listened for several minutes before opening the tunnel exit. The room was empty. Lisa studied the stolen Vorthon equipment she had taken from the guards. Their weapons would not work for her because they were keyed to Vorthon genetic signatures. but their communication devices and data pads were different. She had learned at the academy that Vorthan technology often had security flaws that other species could exploit. She spent an hour working on one of the communication devices, rewiring it with parts from her own equipment. Finally, she managed to access the base's internal communication network. What she heard made her realize just how big this place really was. The base was not just a military installation. It was the command center for Vorthan operations across 3 entire star systems. The attack on the Alliance colonies was being coordinated from right here, in the building directly above her. Lisa also learned something else that changed everything. The base commander was General Crix Vorthak, one of the most important military leaders in the entire Vorthan Empire. If she could capture or eliminate him, it would not just stop the current attack. It would throw Vorthan operations into chaos across the entire sector. She made her way through the base's lower levels using maintenance shafts and service corridors that the Vorthans never bothered to guard. Her small size, which had always made her feel weak compared to other species, now became her greatest advantage. Lisa reached the base's computer center and found exactly what she needed. The Vorthans kept all their important information in one central location, protected by what they thought was unbreakable security. But Lisa had studied computer systems from dozens of different species, and she knew that every system had weaknesses. She connected her modified data pad to one of the terminals and began working. Vorthan computer code was very different from human programming, but the basic logic was the same. She planted a virus that would not destroy their data, but would slowly change small details in their orders and communications. Ship departure times would be delayed by a few minutes. Troop movements would be sent to slightly wrong locations. Supply deliveries would arrive at the wrong buildings. Each change was tiny, but together, they would create chaos. Lisa then moved to the base's power systems. She found the main reactor, exactly where she expected it to be, in the center of the base and heavily guarded, but the backup power system was in a different building, with much lighter security. She planted one of her improvised explosive charges in the backup reactor's control room. The explosion would not destroy the reactor, but it would damage the control systems enough to make them unreliable. The hardest part came next. Lisa needed to get into the command center where General Vorthak was coordinating the attack. The building was in the center of the base, surrounded by guards and security systems. She studied the building for hours from different hiding spots. The Vorthans changed their guards every 2 hours, just like everywhere else in the base. But during the change, there was always a moment when the new guards were getting their briefing and the old guards were walking away. Lisa waited for the next guard change and made her move. She walked directly toward the command building, wearing the Vorthan uniform and carrying herself like she belonged there. Her heart was beating so fast, she was sure everyone could hear it, but she kept her face blank and her steps steady. 2 guards at the entrance looked at her but did not stop her. The uniform and her confident walk were enough to fool them in the dim light. Lisa was inside the most secure building in the entire Vorthan base. Now came the hardest part of all. She had to find General Vorthak and figure out how to stop an attack that was supposed to begin in less than 24 hours. Lisa moved through the command building like she belonged there. The stolen Vorthan uniform was too big, but in the dim hallways nobody looked at her closely. She passed several Vorthan officers who barely glanced in her direction. The virus she had planted in the computer system was already starting to work. She heard 2 officers arguing about supply deliveries that had gone to the wrong locations. Another group was confused about troop movements that did not match their orders. Lisa found a computer terminal in an empty office and checked the base's status. Her sabotage was creating small problems everywhere, but it was not enough to stop the attack. She needed to do something bigger. She made her way to the upper levels of the building, following signs written in Vorthan symbols she had memorized at the academy. The command center was on the top floor where General Vorthak was directing the final preparations for the assault on Alliance colonies. Lisa reached a stairwell and heard voices above her. She pressed herself against the wall and listened. 2 guards were talking about the strange equipment failures happening all over the base. "The general is not happy," one guard said. 3 supply ships have been delayed and the communication system keeps giving wrong information. Maybe we should postpone the attack, the other guard replied. You want to tell General Vorthak to change his plans? You can try, but I am not going to be standing next to you when you do it. Lisa smiled. The Vorthans were starting to doubt themselves, but their rigid hierarchy meant no one dared to question their leader's decisions. She could use that against them. She waited until the guards moved away, then climbed to the top floor. The command center was behind a heavy door guarded by 4 Vorthon soldiers. Lisa knew she could not fight her way past them, so she needed a different approach. She found another computer terminal and accessed the base's communication system using the codes she had stolen earlier. Then she began sending false orders to different parts of the base. Security alert in Section 7, she transmitted, copying the voice patterns she had heard from Vorthon officers. All available guards report immediately. 2 of the guards at the command center left right away. Lisa waited a few minutes, then sent another message. General Vorthak requests immediate report from perimeter security. Guards from command center report to outer wall. The remaining 2 guards looked at each other, then reluctantly left their posts. Lisa had maybe 10 minutes before they would return. She approached the command center door and found it was locked with a security scanner that required Vorthon genetic markers. But Lisa had prepared for this. She pulled out a small device she had built from salvaged parts and connected it to the scanner. The device sent random signals until it found the right combination. It took 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. But finally the door opened. Lisa stepped into the command center and saw something that took her breath away. The room was filled with screens showing ship movements, troop positions, and attack plans for the entire sector. In the center of it all stood General Krix Vorthak. He was taller than most Vorthons, with silver markings on his gray skin that showed his high rank. He was studying a large display that showed the Alliance colonies his forces were about to destroy. 18 hours until the attack begins, he said to his staff officers. Make sure every ship is in position. Lisa realized she was seeing the final briefing before the assault. If she could stop this now, she could save millions of lives. She activated the explosive device she had planted in the backup power system. The explosion was small, but perfectly placed. Lights flickered throughout the building as the backup power failed. In the confusion, Lisa stepped out of her hiding spot and drew the weapon she had taken from the Vorthon guard. It would not fire for her, but the Vorthons did not know that. Nobody move, she announced in her best Vorthon accent. General Vorthak turned around and his black eyes widened when he saw her. A human? How did you get in here? Very carefully, Lisa replied. I want you to cancel the attack on the Alliance colonies. The general's staff officers started reaching for their weapons, but Lisa pointed her useless gun at their leader. I would not do that if I were you. I have already planted explosives throughout your base. One wrong move and this entire facility becomes a crater. It was a lie, but she said it with such confidence that even she almost believed it. General, Vorthak studied her with intelligent eyes. You are the human who crashed on our moon. We have been searching for you. Well, you found me. Now call off your attack. One human thinks she can stop the entire Vorthon Empire. The general actually smiled. Your species is more foolish than we thought. Lisa kept the weapon pointed at him while she moved to the main communication console. With her free hand, she began accessing the system using the codes she had memorized. Maybe humans are foolish, she said, but we are also very stubborn. She activated the base's primary communication array and sent a message on Alliance military frequencies. The signal was strong enough to reach Alliance Command and every ship in the sector. This is Cadet Lisa Martinez calling Alliance Command. I am transmitting from inside Vorthon Facility Omega-9 on Kepler-7. The enemy is planning a massive attack on our colonies in 17 hours. I am sending you their complete battle plans right now. She uploaded everything she had stolen from the Vorthon computers, ship positions, attack routes, troop numbers, everything the Alliance would need to prepare a defense. General Vorthak roared with anger and lunged toward her, but Lisa was ready. She dropped the useless weapon and activated her final surprise. The virus she had planted in the computer system had one more function she had not used yet. Every door in the command center slammed shut and locked. The security system activated, trapping everyone inside. Lisa had turned the Vorthan's own base against them. "The attack is cancelled," she told the general. "Your forces are about to face the entire Alliance fleet, and they will be ready for you." Through the windows, Lisa could see Vorthan soldiers running around the base in confusion as more systems began failing. Her virus was spreading through every computer in the facility. She had done something no one thought was possible. A single human cadet had seized control of the most important Vorthan military base in the sector. Now she just had to figure out how to stay alive long enough for the Alliance to arrive. Lisa stood in the locked command center facing General Vorthak and his officers. The Vorthan leader was no longer calm and controlled. His black eyes burned with anger as he realized what the human cadet had done. "You have made a terrible mistake," the general said. "Even if you stop this attack, the Empire will send 10 more fleets to destroy your pathetic alliance." "Maybe," Lisa replied. "But those fleets will not have the element of surprise, and they will not have you leading them." Through the command center windows, she could see chaos spreading across the base. Her virus had infected every computer system, causing equipment failures and communication breakdowns. Vorthan soldiers ran from building to building, trying to fix problems that kept getting worse. The base's defensive systems were still working, but they were now under Lisa's control. She had turned the most secure Vorthan facility in the sector into her own personal fortress. Her radio crackled with an incoming message. "Cadet Martinez, this is Colonel Murphy. We received your transmission. Alliance reinforcements are on the way." Lisa smiled and picked up the radio. "Colonel, I suggest you hurry. I have some very angry Vorthans who want to have a talk with me." "Hold your position, Cadet. Help is coming." General Vorthak laughed coldly. "Your reinforcements will arrive too late. My fleet commanders know their orders. The attack will proceed even without my direct command." Lisa had been expecting this. She moved to the main communication console and began working. "That might be true, but your fleet commanders do not know that the Alliance is ready for them." She activated the base's long-range communication array and sent a message to every Vorthan ship in the attack fleet. But instead of sending orders, she transmitted the complete Alliance defense plan she had created using stolen Vorthan intelligence. The message made it look like the Alliance knew exactly where every Vorthan ship would be and when they would attack. It included fake troop movements and weapon deployments that made the Alliance forces seem much stronger than they really were. Within minutes, confused messages started coming back from the Vorthan fleet commanders. They wanted to know how the Alliance had learned their battle plans and whether they should continue the attack against an enemy that was clearly prepared for them. Lisa intercepted these messages and sent back replies using General Vorthak's command codes. "Abort the attack," she transmitted in perfect Vorthan military language. "Return to base immediately. New intelligence indicates Alliance forces are stronger than expected." One by one, the Vorthan ships began turning away from their targets. The massive attack that would have destroyed 3 Alliance colonies was falling apart before it even began. "Impossible," General Vorthak whispered as he watched his carefully planned offensive collapse. "How does one human cause so much damage?" "I had good teachers," Lisa said. "Your species taught me that rigid thinking is a weakness. The Alliance taught me that sometimes you have to break the rules to do what is right." 12 hours later, Alliance ships arrived at Kepler 7. Lisa watched from the command center as Alliance Marines landed at the base and began accepting the surrender of confused Vorthan forces. The base's defensive systems were still under her control, so the Vorthans had no choice but to give up. Their own base was being used against them, and their command structure was trapped in a locked room with a human who had outsmarted their entire military. Colonel Murphy was among the first Alliance officers to reach the command center. He looked around at the trapped Vorthan leadership and then at Lisa, who was calmly monitoring communications from the main console. "Cadet Martinez," he said slowly, "when I ordered you to find a safe hiding spot, this is not what I had in mind." "I found a very safe hiding spot, sir," Lisa replied, "right in the middle of their most secure facility." The colonel shook his head in amazement. Do you realize what you have accomplished? This base contains intelligence about Vorthon operations across the entire sector. The attack plans you transmitted allowed us to prepare defenses at 17 different locations. You may have just changed the course of the entire war. Over the following days, the full extent of Lisa's achievement became clear. The captured Vorthon base provided the Alliance with detailed information about enemy troop movements, supply lines, and future attack plans. The intelligence was so valuable that Alliance forces began winning battles they had been losing for months. General Vorthak and his senior officers were transferred to Alliance custody. Before he left, the general spoke to Lisa one final time. "I underestimated your species," he admitted. "We all did. That was our mistake." "It was not your only mistake," Lisa said. "You also assumed that being small and weak means being helpless. Humans have been proving that assumption wrong for thousands of years." 3 weeks later, Lisa stood in the office of Admiral Sarah Blake, the highest-ranking officer in Alliance Command. The Admiral had just finished reading Lisa's official report of the mission. "Cadet Martinez," the Admiral said, "your actions were completely against orders, extremely dangerous and absolutely brilliant. Normally, disobeying direct commands would result in court-martial. In your case, it will result in promotion." Lisa was promoted to lieutenant and assigned to a new position developing unconventional warfare tactics for the Alliance military. But more importantly, her success had changed how other species viewed humans. The Kalari cadets who had mocked her weakness now studied her tactics in their strategy classes. The Rillan instructors who had dismissed human abilities now recommended that other species learn from human adaptability. Word of Lisa's achievement spread throughout the galaxy. Other human cadets found themselves being treated with new respect. Military commanders who had never taken humans seriously began requesting human officers for difficult assignments. 6 months later, Lisa received a message that made her smile. It was from a group of human cadets who had just completed their own impossible mission on a distant world. They had learned from her example that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. The galaxy had told humans they were too weak to matter in the great conflicts between species. Lisa Martinez had proven that sometimes the smallest person in the room could change everything. She looked out at the stars and wondered what other impossible things humans would accomplish once they stopped listening to people who told them what they could not do.